An archipelago called New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean has been hit with unrest in the past weeks. New Caledonia is a French territory. And I know what you're thinking. Why is there a French territory in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? We have to go back in history to answer that. In the late 17th century, British explorer James Cook laid sight on the archipelago and named it Caledonia, Latin for Scotland due to the perceived resemblance between the two. In the middle of the 18th century, New Caledonia was annexed by France and a penal colony was established where thousands of convicts were sent. Was New Caledonia a manless land? No. The Kanak tribes are the indigenous inhabitants of New Caledonia, and they tried to resist French colonization. Unfortunately, these attempts were suppressed, and they faced disposition of land and disruption in their ways of life. But what would make France colonize a group of islands halfway across the globe? Well, typically, with colonial powers, there are usually two answers: money or geopolitical influence. In New Caledonia's case, it was actually both. In the 19th century, nickel was discovered there and it became a significant mining center. In 2019, the 24,000 kilometer square archipelago was the fifth largest nickel producer in the world. And in World War II, New Caledonia became a base for the Allied forces in the raging battles in the Pacific, further disrupting the indigenous Kanak population. After the war ended, the islands witnessed increased calls for autonomy and independence. And in the 1980s, the colony faced violent clashes between the Kanak independence movement and loyalists. But things calmed down after the Matignon and Nouméa Accords, which granted New Caledonia increased autonomy and a path toward possible referendum on full independence. Now we reach the core of the ongoing unrest. Stay with me here. 3 referendums on independence were held in 2018, 2020, and 2021, and voters chose to remain part of France, but with margins narrowing over time. This, of course, can be perceived as a risk by the French government, which plans to amend the constitution to allow residents who have lived in New Caledonia for 10 years to vote in the provincial elections. This would further affect the political influence of the Kanak population and endanger their right to self-determination. The move is considered in breach of the accords that brought peace in the islands in the 1980s and would significantly increase the number of votes from European settlers. The French National Assembly in Paris voted in favor of these changes, leading to protests turning violent in yet another struggle for independence against a brutal Western colonial power.